Yo,
Soup.
we're gonna be recording a series of a Dungeons and Dragons kind of tabletop game, but with our own custom system. So this video is going to serve as explaining the system that we're gonna be using for the campaign, and it's called the entity system, and it's we're going to be explaining the different parts of the system. So first, we're
Because
gonna
it's really complicated.
yeah, it's really complicated. So first we're going to explain the actual entity, what that means. So what is an entity? The official definition is that an entity is any living being with multiple representations of its soul. But that doesn't really tell you anything. So let's look at this image. As you can see, this is the graphical representation of the entity, and it is made up of 6 different parts. So basically, an entity is anything that's alive and that has more than one of these things. For example, a dragon would be an entity because it has a body, it has a mind, it has a soul, but a plant wouldn't be an entity because it only has a body. Okay, so now we're going to explain what each one of these things mean. So, first of all, the body. The body is the entity's representation in the physical realm. So basically, think of the entity as an independent thing that isn't necessarily just somebody's body. An entity exists it just exists. The body is simply its physical representation in the real world. The spirit is the not every entity has a spirit, but the entities that do have spirit are spellcasting entities. And basically, the way a spirit works is that spirit is the representation of the entity in the realm, in the ethereal realm, the realm of pure arcane energy. And yeah, so and finally, the mind. The mind is the representation of the entity in the astral plane. So all of these things are to quantify these things we use what is called a trail. As you can see, they're represented by shooting stars. So think of the actual representation as the head of a shooting star, and then the quantification of the representation is its trail. So for the body, the quantification of how strong the representation of the entity in the physical plane would be its health, which doesn't only represent mean your hit points, but also just like your physical health, like how healthy you are, how strong you are, how dexterous you are, etc. For spirit, the representation of how strong your spirit is in mana or arcane energy. And for mind, it is your sanity. If you run out of sanity, you start going insane. And that's pretty bad. Um, the other three are a little bit more complicated. First of all, the abyss and the hallow. The abyss is it refers to not every entity has an abyss or a hallow. In fact, almost no entities have an abyss and a hallow. Um, if you have an abyss, that means you're a warlock. If you have a hallow, that probably means you're a paladin. So what does this mean? Well, if you make a contract with a demon and you get an abyss, then your abyss is represented by your contract. And this is a little bit unclear, but it's going to become clear as we explain what these different spell casting classes do. And finally, the hallow is so the abyss is kind of your link with the demonic plane, and the hallow is your link with the divine plane. Um, and the quantification of the hallow is purpose. And finally, the thing that ties all of these things together is the soul, which is quantified by ancestry, but that's mostly not relevant, so that's why it's not in the picture. Alright, so that's a basic rundown of what an entity is. So almost everything that's relevant in the system is an entity. Um, NPCs are entities, the characters are entities, the monsters are entities for the most part. So it's really important for reasons I'll explain later that you understand the entity. Anyway, so now we're going to go over the actual types of magic in the system. In this system, there's no real warrior. Uh, Oliver disagrees with me on this, but in my opinion, warriors are kind of stupid in systems, and the reason I don't really like them is because it doesn't make any sense that you're balancing a wizard with a warlock, with I'm sorry, with a wizard with a warrior, because
No,
a
you're
warrior
balancing.
is just swinging his sword and killing people with a sword, and a wizard just shoots a fireball and kills a million warriors.
You're balancing a guy who shoots fireballs versus fucking Hercules.
Yeah, but level 1 versus level 1, that doesn't make any sense. Like, you're not gonna start as Hercules. I don't know. I don't like warriors in systems in general.
Warriors
Um,
are the best.
Whatever, man. So this system is focused on magic, on spellcasters, and it's focused on flexibility on what you can do with the system. So the system has 6 schools of magic, 6 types of magics, which are sorcery, the wielders of which are called sorcerers, druidism, the wielders of which are called druids, psionism, the wielders of which are called scions, the dark arts, the wielders of which are called warlocks, the holy arts, the wielders of which are called paladins, and shamanism, the wielders of which are called shamans. And they all work mechanically different and flavorfully different. Okay, so first of all, sorcery. Sorcery is the most pure school of magic, and it uses arcane energy or mana as its resource. Mana regenerates every day, but the rate at which it regenerates and the maximum mana is determined by the sorcerer's statistics. There are multiple statistics. Only so much mana may be spent at once. So, at first, the first iteration of this system, that last line wasn't in place, but what it encouraged was a way of playing in which you would not use any of your mana really until you really needed it, and then you would unleash all of your mana at once and blow up a freaking wall with a laser or something like that. It was ridiculous.
I still think that is the best playstyle.
Whatever, man. Like, it wasn't. I don't think it's good because it encourages you not to actually use your magic as often as you probably should be using it. So I implemented a system in which you can only unleash so much mana at once, and that increases with level, of course. But you're still gonna be able to get to ridiculous levels, but you shouldn't be able to unleash all of your power at once and do incredible things at level 1. So that's that. Sorcerers use a system called the domain system. There are 10 domains, which are motion, density, nature, mutation, consumption, induction, light, darkness, transformation, and preservation. I'm not going to go into what each of these domains do. It's you can kind of assume what they kind of do, but you're kind of pick up on what they actually do by the gameplay. It's worth mentioning that originally this entire system was just sorcery. It was only the domain system, and then we started adding different classes to it besides sorcery. So yeah, those are the domains of magic. Not every wizard has all the domains. In fact, almost no wizard has. I mean, almost no sorcerer has all the domains. Most people have 2 or 3 domains that they can access. Druidism is kind of special. It's not like the naturey kind of druid that protects its forests, and I don't know. It's not like World of Warcraft druids or Dungeons and Dragons druids. This is freaking shape-shifting vampires. Yeah. The way they work is that a druid can shapeshift into any creature that it has previously drank the blood of. So you could kill someone, or rather drink somebody's blood and kill that person, and then you would be able to turn into that person. Or you could do it with a dragon. Or you could do it with a beholder or a giant worm. I don't know. You can pretty much turn into anything. So we call it druid because they can shapeshift, and that's kind of a trait of druids. But they're not really druids at all. um. Okay. So next one is psionism. Psionic magic relates to the power of the mind to create phenomena in the real world. So, what did you call it, Oliver? ESP?
ESP, extrasensory perception.
Yeah, that's kind of what it is. Except I think it's a little bit broader than that. Similar to sorcery, psionism uses four branches, which are time, awareness, perception, and psyche. Worth mentioning, these branches were originally part of sorcery, but since we created these different classes, we decided to give scions these four branches since they seem fitting for scions. Psionic magic has passive effects and active effects. Examples of passive effects include increased awareness of people's emotions, seeing behind objects, or having visions of the future. Example of active effects include slowing down time, changing the way an enemy perceives an object, or communicating telepathically. Now, you can pretty much do anything with these with psionic magic that is included in these domains. So it's a pretty broad magic. Worth basically the way it works is that you use up sanity whenever you use psionic magic. So you the passive effects don't take up sanity unless they're big passive effects, but the active effects always use sanity. And what happens is that everybody starts at 100 sanity, and if you get to 20 sanity, you go insane. Or rather, 20 is like the borderline between insane and not insane. Below 20, you're insane. And if you go below 0, you start taking away from your maximum sanity. So you're unable to regenerate up to your maximum sanity anymore. So for example, if you go down to negative 20, your maximum sanity becomes 80. So that's kind of to prevent people from just using all of their sanity and telling an ally to kick it, make them pass out after it. I don't know. The Dark Arts, Warlocks. Now Oliver designed this one. Do you wanna read it?
Well, basically, warlocks gain their powers through demons and stuff. So you would summon a demon and forge a contract with them. Demons are all about quote-unquote equivalent exchange, except not really because they're demons. So the main part of one of these contracts is the warlock gives up a part of his body, a part of one of his links, so he could give up mana to the demon every day, or part of his sanity, or other things the demon might request. And then the demon will consume that part, replace it, and then grant them some of the demon's powers. Each demon is basically made up of two different words, an element and a sin. For example, lightning pride or arcane gluttony being two major examples.
Yep.
Both terrible people.
Yeah, they're dicks. To elaborate a little bit on it, what Oliver ended up doing in the last campaign, for example, is he gave up his arm to the demon arcane gluttony, and the arcane gluttony gave him a replacement arm, and the arm had the special power of absorbing magical energy. So he could basically cancel out magical effects by using his arm. Or similar things, like it depends on the demon and the combination of element and sin. The holy arts are for paladins. The paladins are granted their powers by angels. So while warlocks would summon a demon and make a contract with him, paladins are kind of the other way around. An angel would go to a paladin and give him powers. So similar to demons, angels have an element and a holy virtue. So the angel gives the paladin a purpose, which can be something like vanquishing an evil emperor or um, getting rid of evil in a certain area, and a holy relic, which is something like a sword, a shield, or a compass. Holy relics have special powers and also have an ultra powerful ability called an ultimate. Um, the ultimate requires charge to use, which the relic builds over time. So it's kind of like charging. The relic kind of charges up over time, and then you can unleash its power with its ultimate. Furthermore, the paladin can spend some of their purpose to speed the generation of charge. So when the angel actually gives the paladin purpose, depending on the task, he would give the paladin a different amount of purpose. So for a small task, it would give him like 10 purpose. And then but the thing about purpose is that he doesn't recharge over time. He doesn't regenerate over time. So you have to use it wisely, and you can use your purpose to speed up the charge of these holy relics. Now, an example of these holy relics we were talking about, for example, a device that can measure truth. Like you can tell if something is true or not, or ask a question and it will tell you the truth. And its ultimate ability is you could change the truth about something. So like you're dying, and then you change that, and now you're no longer dying. So it's a pretty powerful ability. But it would take a while to charge over time. There was something I wanted to say. Oh yes, you can only use your holy relics for the purposes of accomplishing the purpose that the angel gives you until you complete the purpose, and then you get to keep the artifact and use it whenever you want. Okay. Finally, shamanism. I left this for until last because shamans are complicated.
This is what happens when you leave Pablo and Henry to design something.
Yeah. The basic rundown is that shamans use a system of points called ancestry to accomplish tasks. Now, the actual way that you gain ancestry is really complicated. We'll just be able to pick it up as we play, if one of the players decides to roll that shaman. But the nature of these tasks is really what's complicated. So remember the chart of the entity. The shamans are all about these parts of the entity. So a shaman can create and destroy connections between different parts of the entity. So it can, for example, destroy the link of a person's soul and his mind, and that person would just become a vegetable because he doesn't have a mind anymore. Or he could create a link between a scion's mind and his spirit, because a scion's can't really use mana, so the scion would be able to then use his useless mana in addition to his sanity to use his powers. So shamans can accomplish all kinds of crazy things, and it really gets really ridiculous, the kinds of things that they can do. But they're also the least combat oriented. So if you're a shaman, you're gonna be able to do really, really powerful stuff, but you're not gonna be good in combat unless you're actually good at like weapons that aren't magic. So yeah, that's it. Just pointing out, by the way, going back to the slide of the entity. Each one of the parts of the entity correspond to each one of the schools of magic. So, for example, spirit and mana correspond to sorcery, body and health correspond to druidism, mind and sanity correspond to psionism, abyss and contract correspond to warlocks, hallow and purpose correspond to paladins, and soul corresponds to shamans because they manipulate the links between all of these things. Anyway, that's the rundown of the system. Thanks for watching.